guys, I'm Strident, and today we are going to go a little bit old school. No, I'm not reviewing Godzilla, because that's not the old school vet film. I am reviewing a super robot from back in the day, one that I remember watching, but didn't remember very much of it until watching the show again when I got this figure, and it is none other than the super robot Chogokin GodSigma. I really dig this figure. He's not a huge figure, which is pretty cool. He's kind of, 5-6 inch scale, and he's well made. Lots of die cast, lots of good engineering, just like the last super robot Chogokin that I reviewed. There's so much going on with this guy that even though he's a simple design, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to focus on, a lot to point out, and he just looks, I mean, look at that. That just looks like some shit is about to go down. Makes me want to go out and buy a bunch of those kaijus from Pacific Rim so I can have him stand off against those guys. But as usual, I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, the extra awesome, and everything else in between, so stay tuned. So, Sculpt and Paint. As usual, this is a Bandai product, so you already know. This is one of the ones that usually these figures are kind of in between your mid to higher price points, so the paint job is ridiculous. It's like really immaculate, really clean, nice, what's the word, prismatic finish, the metallic red and the silver, even in the yellow and the blue on the visor, it's got a metallic, almost prismatic finish to it. Little sparkles and shit going on in there, and I love it. It looks beautiful. The gold spots are really well painted. There's not a lot of sharp ends like with the Mazingers, the various Mazingers. I love that. Even though his design is very simple, and you don't have the Sea King or the Earthquake King. I used to watch this in Portuguese when I was a kid. Even though they didn't give you the two robots that form up into this, or the three actually, if you count the body, the main body piece, you still have an amazing sculpt. It's so simple, and I like that. And there's even parts where they took liberties with the proportions, because he's really skinny up top in the show, and then really big as you get down to his legs. Kind of like he's got thunder thighs or something, but they did a good job making him proportioned, and he looks powerful in those proportions. That's what does it for me. Strangely enough, there's a lot of deceptive articulation on this guy, and the sculpt plays with that because it's really clean when you pose him. I mean, as you can see here, and that's him balancing on his own. So it's a very well done, well balanced figure with a good amount of metal or die cast and a good amount of plastic working together for the good of the whole figure. It's not this, we just slap some, Chogokin in this area for the sake of doing so. No, they actually engineered this shit so it works. And it's not to say that there haven't been, SRCs that they did just slap a bunch of metal in random spots and the figure wasn't better for it. You know what I mean? I mean, it was engineered, but it wasn't as well engineered as this or, the Mazinger, Great Mazinger. But the simplicity of the sculpt works from every angle, and for me, that's what does it. It's easy to sculpt a simple, series of shapes and put them together to give you the illusion of this particular character, and then just leave it at that. But it's another story to take those simplistic pieces and then engineer complex movements and whatnot, in range of movement, and along with accessories and pieces that work with that sculpt, and get them to actually work properly. I mean, I didn't have any issues getting anything to work. I didn't have any issues posing the figure. I mean, the only thing that I had to get used to, and I'll point out a little bit more about that in the articulation section, is he has odd shoulders. The big wing, which is this, I know it was like the 70s, early 80s, something like that. Big wing is really well sculpted. he's not painted per se. There's yellow and gold that's painted on, but everything else is sculpted in those pieces or those colors. He's well done too. I mean, you could sit there and play with that thing for hours by itself. You know, it's a very interesting ship of sorts. I like it. I mean, it all plays back to the kind of playability that you got from the various Mazingers, with the Pilder and the I forgot what the jet thing was called, but you know, you have these ships that always serve as the booster, the Great Booster. That's what it was called. Jeez. Um, you always have those simplistic little things that join up and help give the super robot flight capabilities. And you know, this is no different. This once again is you giving him flight capabilities by use of the big wing, hence the name. Uh, it's a good looking, you know, ship, and it looks really nice when connected to the figure, the main figure. So all in all, sculpt and paint, this guy is just pure win. They didn't screw up anything. Everything is where it should be, as it should be, and you know, there's little details that they added that just look good, like in the black on his shoulders. It's just pure win. No complaints. No accessories. He doesn't come with a ton of accessories, but he comes with some cool ones that are cleverly implemented. And it's pretty cool to see how they did this at this scale, too. I didn't know for a long time that they did a smaller version of GodSigma. I only remember seeing the super imaginative Chogokin version, the giant, you know, the really expensive $400 one with the 3 robots that become the 1 robot, and I was just like, I'm just gonna pretend I didn't see that. So this was a Christmas present, so I was happy about this because it got me back into paying attention to these robots, because you know, I do it from time to time, but I don't spend as much time on them. Uh, those are the pair of hands that I didn't include in the image that you saw previously, displayed open hands. But he does come with a bunch of hands, 3 pairs. You have fists, you have holding things hands, and then you have those splayed open hands that I just showed you. And I really dig how simplistic. I mean, most of the super robots' hands look like this, you know. So it's kind of nice that, you know, once again, this is what you have. And if you want more, you could always use the ones from previous ones if you have them. That right there is the bigger black piece is the handle for the shield, which comes off of, in the show, it's the top of the big wing. You see that blue part? It pops off the back or off the top of it and flies forward and turns into the shield. I like the fact that they offered 2 of them at 2 different scales, because that's one of the things that you'll see in Super Robot shows. There's a lot of scale issues. Things just scale up and scale down and whatever, just because, you know, it's sci-fi and that kind of stuff can happen. So it's cool that they actually went that route with this shield. And they do tend to do this with a lot of things when it comes to super robots and whatnot. I really dig the sword on this guy. It's real reminiscent of Voltron. It just doesn't have all the spines and stuff, but it's a really, really, really cool sword. Now the sheath part, that's the part that I was like, wow. So, and I think I have it tilted the wrong way, but pretty much the wings are articulated and you just tilt them and then you hook the handle into the one end. As far as that little black peg piece, I'm going to get to that in a few minutes, because I still want to talk a little bit more about the shield and the ingeniousness of the shield, or ingenious of the shield, and the way it works. Pretty much you take the back piece and you plug it in on top of that shield handle piece, and then you have an instant shield. And that part is awesome. The design overall is real simple, and it's really cool that it works. It doesn't have, I don't have any issues with that. Now the peg, you've seen this peg before if you saw the Super Robot Chogokin Great Mazinger review that I did. This is for flight poses and for stands in general. You plug it into the robot's butt, which is funny that they put it there. And essentially you just, if you have a Tamashi stand, you can take the holder part, the little clamps, you can actually take that whole piece off and it will reveal a little peg, and that little peg can peg into the bottom peg hole, and now you have him attached to your flight stand. I'm going to show you how you take it. I don't really like these stands. They're not as awesome as you would think. The pegs are usually too short, so like if you turn something just a little bit, it pops off, and it's all segmented. It's not already like stuck together, so you tend to not be able to move them while they're on the stand because they'll just pop off. And how is that safe for a figure you paid, in some cases, like this one we got on sale, but some of these guys go for like $100 or $80 or $90, and you have him up on a stand and then he falls down? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I prefer the Mafex stand and the Figma stands. I really love the Figma stands. They're simple, but they work, you know. This is an overpriced kind of not so amazing, you know, alternative. But the shield itself connects to this portion of the arm, the outside of the arm. There are two clips on the sides, and it clips in right there, and then you make sure that you have him holding the black pieces that I showed you earlier, or black piece that I showed you earlier. Pretty much that will hold it in place. You can rotate it on that peg, but it works overall with no problems, and I love that. This is what I'm talking about when I say engineering. You know, this is the perfect example of some really fine engineering for such a small figure. Now the big wing, let's say great booster. The big wing is pretty cool because, like I said, the wings are articulated. I showed you a little preview of that while it was laying on the ground, but I'm going to show you how it looks on the figure. When you want the sword mode to be activated, essentially you just twist it like this. It's in a diagonal, and the peg on the very top, the point is a peg that you can just pull off, and you can replace with the handle, the extra handle that you're given for the blade. I was like, what? Because at first, you know, I saw it on the package and I was like, so the sword somehow fits in here? I didn't know. And I think the Godai, what's it called? Chodaiken or Godaiken? I can't remember. The old one just had a clip. And I think even the big Super Imaginative Chogokin version, or Soul of Chogokin, or whatever it's called, it has a clip and you just put the sword hanging behind the wing. But this is cool because it actually emulates that the blade of the sword is hidden in the wing of the freaking plane, or, you know, the big wing, which is awesome. That's what we saw on the show, you know, and these are the touches that really win me over when it comes to these figures. I mean, let's face it, a lot of the super robots are very similar. They all have a sword, a shield, a bunch of guns, a chest shot or something. You know, there's not a whole lot on many of them that separate them from the rest of, you know, super robot history. But there are some that, even though they have similarities to existing, you know, super robots, the way that it was done stands out. You know, it was nicely done. It was uniquely done. So you get a little bit of a difference between, you know, each of these characters. And I mean, like I said, this is old school, and I dig the old school aesthetic. These guys look like tanks. They don't look like the artist trying to show you everything he learned in art school or everything he learned about art on one design. And that's one of the things I hate about modern, you know, mecha design. It's overdone. A lot of modern design in general, it's overdone. It's too much. Form follows function, and if this thing is supposed to be able to hit super hard, you can't have all these openings on it. This thing is supposed to be able to be armored and take a lot of damage. You can't have like openings with lights and shit all over the place. You gotta have a covered up design that looks like it's plates amongst plates amongst plates. You know what I mean? And these guys look like that. And I love it. The sword looks heavy. Looks like it can cut through other armored things. The shield looks thick enough. And he just looks like he can do what he can do. Now, they didn't add the openings in the big wing for, I can't remember what the name of the blast is, but there's like a weird mode he does when he kind of lights on fire and grabs the big wing and flies through the enemy. But you can't do that with this guy. You can see where those ports would be, but you can't interact. But even still, the accessories are awesome. They did such a good job recreating the things, the majority of the things that we saw in the show. And I'm happy with it. I think you guys will be happy with it too. I just wanted to do a quick comparison of sorts with my other favorite super robots. I mean, I have more, but these are the smaller, kind of in scale ones. The giant robo being the biggest, because he's, to me, that's the scale he should be. But anyway, Gurren Lagann, I love this mecha. This is a Revoltech, but I feel like he still fits in scale with your super robot Chogokin figures. He has no metal on him, but he's a very durable figure, and I dig that. Then, of course, you have GodSigma himself, and he looks nice next to them. It's funny when you see him next to another super robot Chogokin figure, especially if it's a Mazinger, you can see immediately like the connections, you know, the things they have in common design-wise. And then here is the great Mazinger himself. Not exactly the same, but you can see elements like the V for victory. So many of these robots have that. And then, of course, my all-time favorite, Giant Robo. Dude towers over the rest of them. So there's not much of a comparison. I just wanted to put them all together and see what they look like, and I figured I'd share that with everybody. I love it. They look awesome. So a figure like this, being from Bandai, being kind of an offshoot of your SH Figuarts and stuff like that, they're putting that kind of articulation into robots, super robots that we've seen in anime. And this guy has some amazing articulation. They all typically do, but some of them have issues because the design inherently limits things that they can do. You know, sometimes the V sticks off the chest, like the one, the great Mazinger, and it gets in the way. And then you can't do poses like this, even though the character actually assumes poses like this in the show. This guy doesn't have any of those problems. What I like too is that he's a robot, so his anatomy doesn't have to be exactly like that of a human being. So the shoulders having all that upward swivel, instead of just swiveling on the sides of his shoulders, it swivels on the top of his shoulders. It doesn't bother me because, like I said, he is a robot. He does not have to be articulated in the same way that a human being is. He already is bipedal. He already has, you know, 2 arms, 2 legs, you know, and a head. So he's got that humanoid form, but he is a robot. So you can do more with him that way. And I have no issues with that. It's awesome. It works. I can still get him in some dynamic positions, and he just looks thorough. And that's what I want in my super robots, you know. The only thing I would want is him to be larger. All right. Looking at his articulation. Such a nice design, man. So simple. Anyway, we'll start with his head, because I love to start with the head. Makes sense. Head can look up a great deal, look down a great deal, look left and right. It can even swivel to the side a little bit, you know, like tilt to the side and stuff. But look how much it looks down. It's fucking ridiculous. And how much it looks up. And that's without the, you know, the torso doing much. Arms go up this much to the sides. It looks pretty damn nice. And like I said, a lot of the movement sits up on the shoulders. But see how much space that is? He can look up, so he can actually fly forward, and it doesn't look weird. And like I said, there's the swivel going on the outside of the you know, at the top of the shoulder. I mean, when it's at your sides, you're still getting your standard up motion and whatnot. But when you move them up, that's how you get the you know, the shoulder to hand over hand kind of motion. You have a swivel and a like it's not even a bicep swivel. It's more like a there's a peg where the elbow connects into the arm, and then there's a little ball joint that moves on there, and it also has the bend, so you can get that more than 90-degree bend, which is why I'm struggling right here, because it moves kind of independently of the other 2 pieces. So you have to kind of, you know, direct things the right way in order to get that motion going. It's kind of a hassle, but it's a good point of articulation. It works really well once you finagle it the right way. Now, I didn't, I meant to mention these things move up top on the shoulders. Um, little blasters. His hands are on ball joints. It's kind of like an up and down with a ball peg. Real easy to remove and switch them out and stuff, and real easy to move around to pose him and whatnot. It looks really good. I don't know, it's easy to use, you know? Torso. This is a torso standing straight. This is it back. And then you can get a little bit forward. It doesn't have the pop like the Mazinger did. That's it looking forward. And then you get your twist, which makes sense, you know, left and right. And you get a side to side little bit. It feels almost like it's on a ball joint also. The legs, you can get this high up without pulling the leg out. And I think to some degree it just comes out on its own. You can pull the leg down a little bit and you get a little bit more range in your kicks and stuff. It's kind of hard to do, so I just let it happen when it happens. But there's your lateral. You get your more than 90 degrees at the knee, so if you gotta have a kneel, it will work. The feet are a thing of beauty. And I love how the knee joint actually hides behind the lower leg. You can pull the foot out more to get the point, you know, to make it point or to make it like, you know, lean full back as far as you want to. And the you know, pivot, wow, ankle pivot, you can get that as well. So I like the fact that they hid those things inside the leg joint. And you don't have to worry about it while you're, you know, posing it. It's almost intuitive, like it just happens. That's engineering. Not this shit where you keep reusing and reusing and reusing and reusing and you never build on it. And, you know, shit is not quite working, but you just keep doing it anyway, you know? So this is what makes this is one of the things that makes this figure that much better than the average robot figure. And I'm very happy to have him in my collection. Now, as you can see, it just, you know, better engineering allows for more badass posing options. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I love it, man. They did such a good job. And now the bottom line. Yes, we have come to that time. So, everything I've shown you, the sculpt and paint, the articulation, the accessories, the articulation specifically helps put this figure up there. He's a very simplistic, old school, you know, what they call him, a retro super robot. But if you dig this kind of stuff, I'm a child of the 80s, so there were a lot of these for me to pick from, you know? And my dad introduced me to a lot of these, like, sci-fi, you know, in the Godzilla age, those live action sci-fi shows. So growing up, I wanted to pilot a giant robot. That's why I have a shitload of giant robots in my collection. It's one of my favorite things in the medium, you know what I mean? In sci-fi, in anime, in whatever. And they're my favorite, one of my favorite, you know, areas of toys. So this here, at first, I was afraid of this line because I saw how small they were. And I was like, man, it doesn't feel right to get robots this small, because the majority of mine, they could transform, they could do all that stuff. Even my Megazords from back in the day. And I didn't pay an arm and a leg for them. Under 50 bucks for most of them. And they're all 10 inches to like 13 inches tall, you know? Then they started shrinking everything down, but you're getting this kind of quality with a shrunken down figure. And it's kind of good because then you don't run out of space as quickly as I was doing with those guys. So there is a benefit to it. Whether or not you've seen the show, which I saw the show, I didn't watch it enough to like go nuts and, you know, when I'm doing this review, be able to spit back all the, I'm just doing this off the brain. I didn't go back and research. But even if I'm, you know, if you're not a fan of the show, it's a good figure. It's an extremely good figure. It's a great figure. They did a really great job making sure that he is faithfully recreated, and that feeling that you get, this nostalgic kind of feeling from this design, is present. Excuse me, sorry. The nostalgic feeling that the design evokes, it's present. You don't feel like anything is lacking anywhere. The only thing I would have asked for, and this is a minor nitpick, it would have been smaller versions of all three robots separated, so that you could play with them separate and then, you know, have them jump together and form up. But even with that, and with the police and the fire department driving by, even with that, what you get in the package is a great figure. Well done in every area. I just can't really stress enough how, you know, awesome it is when this is the case. You know, a lot of times people settle for less because that's just the standard. Well, here's a standard right here, and you don't have to settle for less. You can actually get into something a little different, a little outside of what you're used to, and you will not be sorry. This figure looks good. He's easy to play with. He has a lot of playability for a higher end collectible, and I'm glad he's in my collection. It was a really awesome Christmas gift. So I think that you owe it to yourself if you're into super robots in any way, shape, or form. If you like, even if you like Transformers, this guy has kind of a old school, you know, Generation 1 kind of feeling to him. If you like Voltron, there you go. You still got the Voltron feeling. If you like Macron 1 or something like that, you still got the same, that similar aesthetic, you know, even though Macron 1 is a beautiful design, like a little bit more complex than this, which I wish to see. I hope that they make a figure of that, because I would love to get it. But, you know, any way you slice it, this is a well done figure. I think you should invest in it, look at it, you know, or look at the line in general and find one that suits your aesthetic tastes, and I think you'll be pretty happy about it. So, this has been my review of the Super Robot Chogokin Space Emperor GodSigma. That name is dope. He is a badass figure from a time long past, and I think the design works so well even today. And he'll look dope amongst, you know, anyone's collection of robots, superheroes, monsters, whatever. He'll look dope, you know, if that's what you want to do with him. And I think you should, you know, let him be part of your collection. So, as usual, that's it for me. You guys have been great, and I'll see you on the next video. This is a dope figure. Peace outside.